A few months ago, I took a week-long camping trip to Pine Ridge. I wanted a break from my office job. I hoped it would help me find my love for photography again. I wasn't too new to camping, but Pine Ridge felt different. The towering pines and serene lake were stunning. I set up my camp by the water and felt the peace of being alone in the woods. I slept well the first night. The sounds of nature were comforting. But on the second night, things changed. Around midnight, I woke up to rustling outside my tent. First, I thought it was a raccoon. I listened closely, but then I heard a rhythmic thump against my tent. My heart started racing. Felt deliberate, but maybe it was just an animal. I tried to brush it off and went back to sleep. The thumping continued each night. It was like it had a schedule. I felt uneasy, but I wanted to stay. I set up my camera, hoping to catch whatever it was. Each morning, I looked for signs of what could be lurking around. I found footprints I didn't recognize. They were bigger than any animal tracks I'd seen before. I started to doubt myself. Maybe they were just in my head. One morning, while near the lake, I thought I saw something move in the trees. A chill ran through me, like someone was watching. I quickly turned around, but there was nothing there. Just the trees swaying in the wind. I felt my skin prickle with unease. I convinced myself it was nothing and went back to my tent. But the feeling lingered, digging at my mind. As night fell again, the dread grew. I sat by the fire, trying to distract myself. But the thumping increased, louder and more urgent. With every thud, my heart raced. I muttered to myself, it's just an animal. But I wasn't sure anymore. On the fifth night, I decided to confront whatever it was. I stepped out of the tent. The cold air hit me. The woods were too silent. The thumping started again, louder this time. I shouted, "Who is there?" No answer came. I felt a presence nearby, watching me. I turned to run back to my tent, and I swear I saw a figure at the edge of the trees. It just stood there, still as a statue. I froze. I can't explain why, but I felt it staring right at me. And then, just like that, it was gone. I felt the air get heavy. I asked myself, did I really see that? Maybe it was all in my head. I ran into my tent, my heart pounding. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Now, I can't shake what happened in those woods. Was it just me? The thumping, the shadows, the sensation of being watched? I don't think I'll ever know. The next day, I decided to break the silence. I wasn't going to wait for nightfall to confront my fears. I packed my gear and set out on a hike around the lake. The morning sun was bright, illuminating the path. I told myself I needed to find clarity in the light. As I walked, I scanned the trees and listened for any sound that felt out of place. I wanted to see if I could spot that figure again. The rustling leaves seemed to echo my nerves. I came across the prints I had found before, and I bent down to examine them closely. They didn't look like any animal tracks I knew. The shape was wrong. A primal instinct kicked in, telling me to back away. Then, I noticed something. A piece of cloth caught on a low branch. It was a faded red, tattered at the edges. I reached for it, and as I pulled it free, I felt a jolt in my stomach. It looked too familiar. I froze again. I swear it was the same color as the shirt I had worn a few nights before. Panic flared inside me. I couldn't shake the feeling that my presence here was more than just a camping trip. The woods felt alive, as if they were watching, judging my every move. I turned to head back to camp, but as I walked, I heard it again. A faint thump in the distance, like a heartbeat echoing through the trees. I quickened my pace, adrenaline fueling my steps. Just then, I stumbled across a clearing I hadn't noticed before. The ground was disturbed, as if something had been dragged. Crouching down, I saw more bits of cloth and then a flash of metal. I reached out and uncovered what appeared to be an old rusted compass. It had strange markings on it, symbols I didn't recognize. I grasped it tightly, unease gnawing at my insides. Why was this here? What did it mean? As I continued to analyze the compass, I felt the air around me shift. The woods seemingly grew darker, the sunlight retreating as the clouds rolled in overhead. I looked around, suddenly aware of how quiet it had become. No birds, no rustling in the underbrush, just a heavy silence. That S when I heard it again, the thumping, now closer, more insistent. My heart raced. I stood up and scanned the trees. Is someone there? I called out, but my voice sounded small against the stillness. Then, everything went dark. The sky seemed to swallow the light, leaving only shadows looming around me. My pulse quickened as I stumbled backward, the compass slipping from my hands and clattering to the ground. I felt a presence nearby, a figure emerging from the shadows. I turned to run, but the weight of fear anchored me in place. "What do you want?" I shouted into the darkness. No answer came, just the thumping, echoing through the trees, louder, like a warning that I had to get back to camp. I darted into the trees, branches scratching at my face as I tried to escape. Panic fueled my movements. The thumping grew frenzied, pressing in on me. I didn't dare to look back. But as I ran, a chilling thought hit me. What if I wasn't alone in the woods after all? I sprinted through the trees, each branch whipping past me, threatening to halt my escape. The thumping surged, pounding in my ears like a war drum. I couldn't tell if it was my own heartbeat or the sound of something or someone closing in. Suddenly, my foot caught on a root, sending me crashing to the ground. I landed hard, the breath knocked out of me. Panic surged as I scrambled back to my feet, but the thumping halted abruptly. Silence enveloped me once again. Only disturbed by the sound of my ragged breath, I strained to listen, every nerve in my body on high alert. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice quaking. The oppressive quiet mocked me. Just as I was about to turn and run again, I heard something else, a low whisper, like a voice carried by the wind. It was too faint to make out, but it chilled me to my core. Dread settled heavily in my stomach. Was I losing my grip on reality? I pushed the thought aside. I had to keep moving. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see that shadowed figure. Instead, all I saw was a wall of trees, their dark trunks blending into the growing gloom. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. I needed to get back to camp. I dropped to a fast-paced jog, avoiding the roots and rocks as best as I could. But just a few yards ahead, I spotted something on the forest floor. Curiosity took over and I slowed down. It was another piece of cloth, but this one was different. Fresh, vibrant blue, the fabric looked almost new. I knelt to pick it up, recognizing it instantly. It was part of a jacket I had seen my friend wear just days before we had come out here. Fear cut deeper than ever. Why was it here? I scanned the area around me again, the familiar sense of being watched returning with a vengeance. I could feel my heart hammering, each beat urging me to flee. But as I stood there, a loud rustle broke the silence. I turned, heart racing, and saw a figure among the branches. My breath caught. It was fleeting, just a shadow flashing between the trees, too fast to identify. "Show yourself," I yelled, half challenge and half desperation. But the woods replied only with silence. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get out of there, and my survival instincts took over. I sprinted off again, tracking my path back toward camp. With each step, those whispers returned, echoing in my mind. Were they real, or had the woods twisted my thoughts? My legs burned, but I couldn't slow down. Then, the thumping came back, this time synchronizing with my frantic heartbeat. It was relentless, a taunting reminder of something hidden just beyond the edge of my understanding. I burst into the small clearing surrounding my campsite, gasping for air. But as I scanned the area, my blood ran cold. My gear was scattered, tents ripped, and fire pit upturned. As fear clawed at my insides, a wild thought struck me. What if I hadn't been alone, but they'd been here longer than I had? And just then, I felt it, a breath on my neck, chilling me to the bone. I spun around, heart racing. There was no one behind me, but the air felt charged, heavy with a presence that made my skin crawl. I took a step back, keeping my eyes glued to the trees that surrounded the campsite. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed from the underbrush, sent me jumping back, pulse quickening. "Is someone there?" I shouted again, voice shaky but firm. This time I prepared to run if I needed to. Then I remembered the jacket, the blue fabric in my hand. My friend Nate had worn that. I couldn't just leave it behind. Uncertainty gnawed at me. I was terrified, yes, but I needed answers. I sprinted back to the spot where I had found the cloth, desperately scanning the trees. A part of me rationalized. Maybe someone else had camped here. But that didn't explain the mess or the unsettling woods around me. I turned, feeling a chill creep up my spine as I thought I heard a soft laugh, distant and mocking. I took a deep breath and considered my options. Staying at the site felt dangerous. I needed to find Nate, Mia, anyone. I turned away from the jacket and started back toward camp when a glint caught my eye. A metallic object lay buried in the leaf litter. I knelt down and brushed away the dirt, revealing a pocket knife. My heart dropped as I realized it was Nate's. The blade was stained, smeared with something dark. Was it blood? I recoiled instinctively, yet I knew I couldn't ignore this. I rose to my feet, adrenaline surging. Panic flashed in my mind. What had happened here? Where was Nate? Glancing around frantically, I decided I needed help. I had to find someone, anyone. That I bolted back through the trees, retracing my hurried steps. As I burst into the campsite clearing again, I called out, "Nate! Mia!" But the only response was the rustling leaves, betraying nothing. Taking in the wreckage of our camp, I felt a growing sense of despair. The fire pit had been smashed, and my gear lay in disarray. I kicked aside a burnt log, searching for any sign of life, but the place felt like a graveyard. That's when I saw a figure at the edge of the clearing, partially obscured by the dark. It wasn't moving, but I could feel its intent, a silent weight pressing down in the air. My breath hitched, and just as quickly, my instincts kicked in. I sprinted toward the figure, heart pounding in my ears, urgency bubbling to the surface. Could be Nate or Mia, I had to know. I half mumbled their names, fueling my adrenaline. But when I got close enough to see clearly, I froze. It wasn't either of them. The figure was cloaked in dark rags, face hidden, and it lifted an arm slowly, pointing deep into the woods. My blood turned to ice. I didn't understand what it meant, but in that moment, I knew I had to find out. Turning on my heels, I prepared to follow it into the unknown darkness ahead. I stepped cautiously, the figure's gesture lingering in my mind like a ghost. As I moved deeper into the woods, the dense foliage swallowed my senses. The moon barely illuminated my path, creating shadows that danced around me. Every whisper of the wind felt like a warning. I was alone. The stillness was deafening, punctuated only by the crunch of leaves under my feet. My heart drummed a rapid beat in my chest. I called out once more, "Nate! Mia!" But my voice faded into the silence. The air grew colder as I followed the direction the figure had pointed. I glanced back, half expecting to see it still there, watching me. But it had vanished, leaving me with a creeping unease. Then, I heard something, a faint rustling from the bushes to my right. I paused, listening intently. It almost sounded like whispers, but when I strained to hear, it turned into mere echoes. The darkness felt alive, and my instincts screamed at me to turn back. Before I could decide, a low growl pierced the night air. My breath hitched. What could make that sound? Flicking my flashlight beam through the trees, I scanned for movement. Nothing. I felt exposed, and every instinct told me to find safety. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a shimmering object on the forest floor. I approached it slowly, curious but wary. It turned out to be a reflective shard of glass, partially buried in the dirt. The edges were jagged, and it looked like part of a bottle. My mind raced with questions. Where did it come from? Why was it here? Just then, I heard a voice, soft and low. "Help!" My heart stopped. It was far off, hidden in the branches. "Nate?" I shouted, hope blooming in my chest. I strained my ears to listen, but the voice was gone just as quickly as it appeared. I pivoted toward the sound, adrenaline kicking back in. I couldn't ignore it. I needed to move fast. I charged towards where I thought the voice had come from, dodging branches that clawed at me like fingers as I stumbled through the underbrush. I thought I heard the voice again, closer this time. Help! It was desperate, filled with fear. It drove me forward, despite the dread curling in my stomach. But then, I stopped dead in my tracks. Ahead of me lay the remnants of a campsite, similar to ours but eerily different. Torn tents were scattered about, and a fire pit lay cold and dark. It looked abandoned but somehow felt wrong. The shiver down my spine was sharper now. That S when I saw it an old, weather-stained map splayed out on a log. The edges were frayed, and there were markings all over it. I grabbed it, trying to make sense of the scribbles. As I studied it, a chill raced through me. There was a large X marked not too far from where I stood. And underneath it, the words where it ends were scrawled in hasty writing that I felt my heart sink. I had to get back, this wasn't going to end well. But before I could think further, a sound shattered the air behind me, a rustling followed by hurried footsteps. Someone or something was coming. I turned, fear slithering back into my bones. "Who's there?" I called out, voice trembling, and no answer. Just the sound of leaves crunching, growing louder. I was out of time. A figure emerged from the shadows, and my breath caught in my throat. It was a person, but I couldn't tell who. Their features were obscured by darkness, shadowed by the trees. "Nate?" I whispered, my voice wavering. "Help!" It was the same voice I had heard before, now more frantic. I took a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I'm here. Please." The figure shifted nervously, and with every passing second, my heart raced faster. I clenched the map tightly in my hand as if it could protect me. The growl I'd heard earlier resonated through the woods again, sending a chill racing down my spine. I needed to move. Whatever danger lurked was closing in. "Stay back," I yelled, uncertain if it was the right thing to say. The figure hesitated but then stepped into the light of my flashlight. It was a girl, but not Mia. Her eyes were wide with terror, glistening like the shards of glass on the ground. "You have to help me. They're coming." "Who's coming?" I asked, my voice edged with urgency. "People, dangerous people. They took my friends." She glanced behind her, her body shaking. I didn't know whether to trust her or turn and run, but my instinct told me to believe her. "I can't leave without my friends." "Have you seen them?" "They were taken to the clearing." "You can't go there. It's not safe." Before I could respond, the growl came again, now deeper and closer. I swung my flashlight towards the sound, illuminating a set of glowing eyes in the underbrush. Something was lurking, something that shouldn't be there. The girl grabbed my arm. "Run." I didn't hesitate. We sprinted through the debris of the abandoned campsite, crashing through the underbrush as the sound of snapping twigs followed us like a relentless predator. "Where are we going?" I gasped, adrenaline propelling me forward. "The safe place." "Hurry," she shouted, leading the way through a narrow path. I barely had time to steady my breathing before I felt a branch whip across my face. But I pushed through the pain. The fear surged in me, driving me on. We broke into a small clearing, and I finally dared to survey our surroundings. It was eerily quiet. My light flickered over a dense patch of trees ahead. "What happens now?" "Just wait." She glanced nervously over her shoulder, her breathing heavy. "We can't make a sound." As we crouched low, I heard the rustling again, but this time it was accompanied by voices muffled and menacing. "We have to find them before it's too late." My heart sank. "Who?" The girl pressed her finger against her lips, silencing me. The voices grew closer, and I realized we were not just hiding from something. We were hiding from someone. Then, a flash of movement caught my eye. Suddenly, a figure broke through the trees. It wasn't just one. A whole group appeared, their faces grim. My gut twisted in fear as they scanned the area, hunting for something or someone. "Stay put," the girl whispered, her eyes wide with panic. I knew I had to make a choice, but the urgency of the moment left me spinning. All I could focus on was survival. The group moved like shadows, their bodies lit briefly by moonlight as they passed. I held my breath, heart racing. I could feel the girl's grip tighten on my arm. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but fear rooted me to the spot. Would it be safer to stay hidden or risk being caught? The voices grew clearer as one of them spoke up. Check the outskirts. They've got to be around here somewhere. A deep chuckle followed, sending a chill down my spine. My mind raced. They were looking for us. Do you think they found the others? I whispered to the girl, fear creeping into my voice. She shook her head, her eyes darting to the noise in the brush. I hope not. They're different. They won't let you go easily. Before I could question what different meant, a loud snap echoed nearby. One of the figures turned sharply toward our direction, eyes narrowing as they squinted into the darkness. My heart pounded in my ears. We should move, I suggested, adrenaline pumping through me. If we didn't get out of this clearing now, we'd be trapped. But the girl shook her head vehemently. No, wait. Just then, the growls I had heard earlier swelled and harmonized with the sinister voices, an unsettling combination that felt like an omen. It's one thing to be hunted by people, I thought, but whatever those things were, I think they're here, I murmured, the weight of dread settling over me. A gust of wind whipped through the clearing, rustling the leaves like whispers of a coming storm. I felt like a deer caught in headlights, unable to look away from the figures moving closer. In a moment of panic, I turned my flashlight around, pointing it toward the twisted trees. That S when I saw it. A shape, darker than the surrounding shadows, slinking low to the ground. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, almost hypnotic. Breathe, the girl urged, but I couldn't hear her over the rapid drumming in my chest. Suddenly, I realized something terrifying. The group wasn't just searching for us. They were hunting something else, something that prowled the woods like a predator. The context shifted in my mind. The humans weren't our biggest threat. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed another figure approaching the group. My breath caught again as I recognized a familiar silhouette. Nate. He looked disoriented but unharmed. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly overtaken by confusion. Help me, he shouted, stumbling closer. The group turned swiftly, their expressions darkening as they zeroed in on him. Run, Nate, I screamed, panic igniting in me. But before he could respond, the creature lunged at him, a blur of fur and teeth. Everything changed in that instant. The men's voices turned wild, fear and chaos erupting. I didn't even think. I grabbed the girl's hand and took off, darting back into the underbrush. We ran, and I didn't stop to look back. All I cared about was escaping, finding a place where the shadows couldn't reach us. But deep down, I knew we headed straight into the unknown, where answers might come, or just deeper darkness as we broke free into another clearing. A deep growl echoed behind us, fierce and ominous. Whatever hunted us wasn't finished yet. We didn't stop running until the growl faded into the distance, replaced by the sounds of the night. The rustling leaves and distant chirps of crickets felt oddly calm after the chaos we just escaped. We stumbled into a small clearing, the moonlight washing over us like an unwanted blanket. Do you think we lost them? I panted, my lungs burning. I looked at the girl, her face pale but determined. I don't know, she replied, glancing back toward the shadows. It's too quiet now. That's never a good sign. I took a moment to catch my breath and noticed that Nate had stumbled in after us, still breathing heavily, but his expression was different, focused. What happened back there? I asked, my voice shaky. He hesitated, looking over his shoulder as if expecting the figures to burst forth at any second. I thought I saw you both. I didn't know you were hiding. What did you see? The urgency in my tone made him look at me. Really look. Nate's eyes widened. There was something else. When I saw you, I heard it, a howl. It was strange, like it echoed off the trees, but it wasn't just a sound. It felt alive. The girl's grip on my arm tightened. The creature, she whispered. What creature? Nate asked, shifting uneasily. We think it was hunting them, I replied, trying to piece together our fragmented understanding. The ones looking for us, those people. They weren't the only danger. Nate's brow furrowed. You mean it's a wolf or something? Not just a wolf, I muttered, recalling the creature's eyes and how I felt inexplicably drawn to them. Something darker, something different. As we stared at each other, the fear simmered, but it was also mixed with an embarrassing sense of needing to do something. We couldn't just stand around waiting. Maybe we should move, I suggested, glancing again at the dark line of trees. Try to find a safer spot. What if they're looking for us? Nate argued, a hint of desperation in his voice. What if they have traps? We could go back. The girl said, her voice so low I nearly missed it. Try to find the others. If they're different, they might know what's happening. I shook my head. We don't even know if the others are safe. We can't risk it. We have to keep moving. Just then, a rustle came from the shadows. My heart raced. Did you hear that? I whispered, dread coating my throat. Nate and the girl nodded, their eyes wide with fear. We stepped back, instinctively trying to make ourselves smaller. My flashlight flickered as I pointed it toward the source of the sound. The beam landed on a massive tree, its trunk thick and gnarled like something that belonged to a different world. Then I saw it. Two glowing eyes stared back at us from a dark crevice in the roots. They were never the only ones in these woods. I felt the air grow heavy, the tension coiling around us. Before I could react, something moved fast and lo, a shadow darting from behind the tree, bounding into the clearing. It was not human. We need to run, I shouted, my voice echoing into the night as I turned to sprint back toward the thicker woods. But as I glanced back, I realized we weren't the only ones running. A figure emerged from the trees, a man from the group. Get away from it, he yelled, but I couldn't tell if he was warning us or luring us into a trap. And in that moment of hesitation, everything shifted again. I felt the ground tremble beneath me, like the start of an earthquake, but we had to make a choice. Would we trust him, or run blindly into the night's chaos? The moment hung. Uncertainty weighed down on us. It made it hard to think. Should we trust this man, or do we follow our instinct and flee? Run! I shouted again, but desperation fueled my voice. The creature was moving. I could feel its presence. The way the shadows shifted, darting under the trees, it felt like we were being watched, hunted. The man rushed forward, closer to the light. I know what it is. You have to come with me. His intensity felt real, but so did the danger surrounding us. Nate hesitated, his eyes darting between the figure and the darkness beyond. We should go. The girl's voice cut through the tension. The fear in her eyes lit a fire under my feet. Without thinking, I grabbed her hand, and we sprinted toward the trees, that tangled mess of branches and underbrush offering some kind of cover. Behind us, I heard the man shout something else, but I didn't stop to listen. The thundering of my heart matched the pounding of my boots against the forest floor, pushing me to keep moving. We barreled through the undergrowth, branches scraping against my arms and legs. I could hear Nate's south footsteps close behind us. We needed to find somewhere to hide, somewhere that could block out that thing stalking us. As we stumbled deeper into the woods, I suddenly caught a glance of movement ahead, something dark and fast slipping just outside the beam of my flashlight. What was that? My voice was barely more than a breath. Keep going, the girl yelled, her grip tightening on my arm. The panicked energy around us felt like electricity, urging us onward. Then I saw it again. This time it wasn't just shadow. A shape emerged, darting in and out of my view. My throat became dry as fear surged back up. I turned to Nate. What do? We can't keep running, he shouted back. We need to hide. We need to. Before he could finish, the ground beneath us rippled again. A strong presence approaching us. It was unmistakable now. Get down, I yelled, throwing myself and the girl to the side, hoping this would buy us a moment. The air grew heavy, a darkness creeping closer. I spotted a hollowed-out tree nearby, and without thinking, I pulled the girl toward it. In here, we dropped inside, the damp, musky scent surrounding us. I shushed them as we huddled down, trying to stifle our breaths. Outside, something moved closer, circling our hideout. I could see shadows shifting beneath the faint light streaming in from the opening in the trunk. What is it? Nate whispered, his voice trembling. I don't know, I replied, trying to keep my breathing steady. But I think it knows we're here. A low growl rose from the depths of the forest, vibrating through my bones. It sounded closer than before, and then I heard it, a soft voice, whispering out from the shadows. "Help me, please." My heart nearly stopped. It was the man, a plea for help, but there was something wrong. Something in the way he spoke sent shivers crawling up my spine. Should we help him, or stay hidden? The choice was heavy, and the night held its breath, waiting for our next move. In the dark silence of the hollow tree, I felt the weight of the moment closing in around us. The whispers were growing faint again, and I thought I heard the distant thumps of a heartbeat echoing through the underbrush. Nate was trembling beside me, the fear palpable as he glanced nervously at the entrance. "Do you think it's gone?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. I shook my head, knowing better than to assume the darkness would spare us. Outside, the growl returned, a low rumble that vibrated through the earth. I clenched my fists, trying to steady my breath, but the heaviness in the air felt stifling. I couldn't shake the eerie sensation that something was looming just beyond the reach of our light. Every moment stretched painfully, every second laden with uncertainty. And then, through the shadows, I heard it again. "Help!" The voice came clearer now, but I could hear the terror, the desperation laced within it. Was it truly the man we had seen, or was it another trick of the woods? "Stay quiet," I urged, keeping my voice as steady as I could muster. But my mind raced. What if he was in danger? What if he knew something we didn't? As we huddled in silence, waiting for the creature to move away or for the man to approach, I couldn't help but notice the growing tension. The air felt charged, as though something was building towards its explosive conclusion. Suddenly, shadows danced just outside our refuge. The light flickered, and I caught a glimpse of a shape hulking and dark moving against the trees. Nate let out a shaky breath. "What if we just make a break for it?" "No, the moment we move, we're at risk," I replied. "We're safer in here." But then the growling intensified, becoming a chorus that resonated through the forest. My heart thundered in my chest. I strained my ears, listening for any clue. Was there more than one creature out there? Just as the realization began to sink in, a flash caught my attention, a glint of something metallic reflected in the faint moonlight. It was the compass I had found earlier, lying abandoned just beyond the tree. But why was it there? All at once, a loud crash rang through the woods. The growl morphed into a shriek. I could hardly think as I instinctively grabbed the girl's arm tighter, as if her presence could anchor me against the fear. "We have to go now," Nate urged. "It sounds like it's right there." I wanted to argue, to protect us all by staying hidden, but the urgency in his voice stirred something inside me. Maybe it was time to confront whatever dwelled within the darkness. I glanced at the girl, who nodded hesitantly. "On three," I whispered, feeling time slip away around us. 1, 2, 3. We bolted from the hollowed tree, sprinting into the night, propelled forward by instinct and terror. The moonlight turned the landscape into a ghostly blur as we dashed deeper into the labyrinth of trees, branches grasping at us like the skeletal fingers of ancient spirits. Behind us, the growl transformed into an echoing howl, a sound so primal it reverberated within me. There was no looking back, no turning around. Something was gaining on us, but what? "We need to make it to the water," I yelled, trying to remember the layout of the campsite. Just then, a flash of movement appeared to my right, a creature unlike anything I'd ever seen, racing alongside us, its eyes luminescent and terrifying. My instincts screamed for me to turn, to fight, but a part of me was paralyzed by fear. That was when we broke through the final line of trees and found ourselves on the shoreline of the lake. For a split second, the shimmering moonlight reflected off the water and offered a sense of safety. But just then, another guttural growl erupted behind us. The shoreline was too long, too narrow. We skidded to a stop at the water's edge, the unseen force approaching fast. "What do we do?" the girl shouted, panic threading her words. Nate turned to us, determination flashing in his eyes. "We can't stay here." A sense of hope flickered in my chest, but what did we do? Before I could decide, the creature swirled out of the darkness, its silhouette towering before us. It paused, as though it took a moment to assess its prey. My breath caught in my throat. "Don't move," I cautioned, but adrenaline coursed through me. Would it pounce? Did it sense our fear? And then the creature lunged, and in that instant, everything became chaos. Screams, flashes of light. All I could feel was the electric tension in the air, a maelstrom enveloping us. I reached for Nate, for the girl, for anything to pull us away from the impending doom. The last thing I remember was a crashing wave as we fell into the water, feeling the chilly depths close over us, plunging us into darkness. I resurfaced, gasping, sputtering out water. The world felt surreal, a blend of shadows and flickering light. I searched frantically for Nate and the girl, but in the haze of confusion, all that remained was the pervasive sound of splashing and the distant thumping closing into. We had escaped for now. The immediate danger had been cast into the depths of the lake, but its presence loomed above the water, leaving questions that clawed at my mind. Had we really outrun it? Was the campsite any safer? Or were we simply trading one fear for another? I could feel its weight lurking behind the trees, waiting, watching. But in that moment, as I leaned against the cool water, I couldn't shake the feeling that the true horror of Pine Ridge was far from over.